Hi, we're Pegboard Nerds.
I'm Michael. Yeah, I'm Michael. I'm from Denmark. I started making music back in 1989. Before that, I was doing radio, and I got into making music because I thought that acid house music and 80s hip hop was super exciting, and I wanted to know how that was made. So I started saving up, doing paper routes to buy my first gear, and I bought a TR-909 and a Roland TB-303, Juno 106, and an old reverb unit. But I didn't make music, full time, so I am also an audiologist. I haven't practiced that for ages, but yeah, that's who I am.
Did you know you can't do a paper route anymore? Because it's all digital. I can't. It's sad. Yeah. Okay. I'm Alex, or Alexander, if you want to be specific about it, from Norway. I used to do landscaping and graphic design, two wildly different fields of work, I guess. I started making music in 1996 when I went to a LAN party called The Gathering in Norway, where I saw someone make music using a piece of software called Fast Tracker. So I was intrigued, and I acquired it illegally. Wanted to my first synths were the JP8000 with the original super saw, and some Waldorf synths. My first release was in 2004.
And in 2004 was when Alex and I met. We met because I was doing another project at the time, and I was always curious about new music, and this name Flipside came up on some of the releases I bought. I was also a DJ at the time, so I was playing a lot of shows. And this came up, and I was like, God damn it, that sound design is fucking amazing. I need to figure out who that is. So I called up the guys that released the record back then. I was playing trance music, so it was trance back then. And I got his email, and I emailed him and said, hey, do you want to do a remix for me? And that's kind of how we met.
Yeah, and for me, it was kind of crazy because I had not gotten any kind of, what do you call it, like recognition outside of Norway at the time. The track had come out, but so getting Michael's email and him telling me his the stuff that he'd worked on, I was just like, holy shit, I've listened to this and this and this and this. You mean you produced all this? So I was super excited to someone noticed something. So that was
it was a good time. So we've basically been married ever since. And that was back in 2004. And as some of you might know, Pegboard Nerds is not that old. We haven't released records under that name. We started Pegboard Nerds back in 2012. So in those 8 years, what we did was we did a shitload of remixes under various names and a lot of ghost productions. We probably made between 100 and 200 releases in those 8 years.
It was definitely my 10,000 hours.
Oh yeah, and then we kind of thought we were kind of tired of the whole scene about how it sounded, and it was just all the same. It was boring, blah blah blah, and that was both the house scene, the techno scene, the trance scene. So we almost gave up, actually, and then Alex, he was like, no, we have to do something which is what we want to do, not what we expect other people want to hear. And then he introduced me to Pendulum. I was like, whoa, that was insane. Yeah. And then Skrillex, of course, and we were like, okay, that's interesting. Let's try and do our take on it. And that's kind of how it started.
There was like a shift, and there was a lot of stuff happening around 2012, I want to say. Like there was a shift in the music scene. Music software was getting way better. You could actually use soft synths because you couldn't before that. They sounded like shit. Very like digital sounding in a bad way. Yeah, plastic, whatever. So, you know, there are certain moments in time where a lot of things sort of like start coming together. Things that are within and outside of your influence, I want to say. And yeah, so we just decided to stop doing random anonymous remixes and ghost productions and just put our own name on it. And I mean, that's its own story, how that came to be.
Yeah, that's basically it. And the name Pegboard Nerds is really weird. We think that it's weird too. But we were sitting in the studio one day and we wanted to figure out, so what should we call this new thing we wanted to do? And like all the cool names were taken. We searched online, it was just impossible to find a good name. And then Alex was like, hey, I have this anagram generator. Let's test it. And we did, and we put in our last names, and up came like bearded prongs,
badgered,
porns,
and just like,
and Pegboard Nerds came up, and we were like, holy shit, that's funny. Ha ha ha. Okay, let's go on to the next one. And we like kept coming back, and that's kind of how it turned out. Yeah. So it's basically an anagram. And we thought it kind of fit what we wanted to do because we're like into the 8-bit thing and computer games. We felt we were a bit nerdy, so it was kind of a good.
It made sense once we got to think about it for a minute. It's not a super sexy name, you know. It doesn't have. It's not like boom bam, or you know, it doesn't have like 2 syllables. It's like Pegboard Nerds, and every time we're flying into the U.S. and they're like, "So what do you do? We make music. What's your name?" We're Pegboard Nerds. And they're like, "What?"
And the TSA agent, he's like, "That's a stupid name."
Yeah.
Yep. That is a stupid name.
Yeah, one of the guys said that. He was like, "You should change that." We're like, "All right, cool."
Thank you. Yeah, but that's kind of our story. I do want to say one thing though, that one of the records that made me discover Alex that came onto my radar was he won a remix competition for Above and Beyond, the satellite track, and I was like, damn, that's crazy. And then like the week after or like a month after, another record came up with that name, and it was just as fantastic. And I'm like, okay, I gotta talk to this guy. So yeah.
It's funny though, is the first remix Michael had me do never came out.
Never came out.
It was due to other
circumstances.
Yeah, but
universal. Yeah, but that's kind of what it is. So I guess enough talk about us. That's kind of boring. So let's talk about why we're here, actually. So we kind of made a few topics we wanted to talk about. And on the way here, we were actually talking about maybe we should do the Q&A a bit differently. So maybe we should ask you and not the other way around. Like, why are you here? What do you want to hear? Do you want to hear the story? Do you want to hear how you program a synth? Do you want to hear sound design? Do you want to hear mix downs? What do you want to hear? So we kind of made a list of things that we think you want to hear.
Oh, it's a long list, but yeah.
So what do you think? Is that what you want to hear? Breakdown, yeah.
Breakdown. So we talked about that too. Like, so a track breakdown to us had, I mean, it's funny and it's interesting to look at, but in terms of how you got to that point, it doesn't really say much. So we can like solo our way through a track and you're like, oh, wow, okay, I never knew that was in there. But it doesn't really tell you the twists and turns in creativity and happy accidents, just how you got there. So we're going to do a track breakdown, but we sort of had a desire to talk about the concepts that we use in general. But yeah, we'd love to hear also what you guys are hoping to get out of this so we can be aligned in that sense.
Yeah. Then, of course, sound design. That's probably something that everybody who's into music, they want to learn at some point. And then we thought arrangements, which is very important to us.
Hard to do.
How to do that and how we deal with that. And then, of course, inspiration, motivation, what ticks us, why do we do this? And yeah, and then, of course, the last thing, positive, negative reinforcement.
Oh, yeah, that's just kind of a note in the Uber on the way here, but I guess it's a bullet point now.
Yeah. But let's get to it. Are you ready, guys?
Okay.
Are you ready?
Woo! So we chose to do the Gunslinger track that we recently put out featuring MC Moda.
Yeah. And just to tell you a few things. So this session has been kind of tidied up and broken down because the track count was probably twice what you see here.
Yeah, we're at, 88 now?
Yeah.
This track has kind of a crazy story, though, because it started out 6 years ago with us playing a festival in England. And Michael told me he wanted to do a remix of Sound of the Police by KRS-One. So in this super grimy, sweaty, noisy trailer that served as our green room, we made the first version, which was kind of terrible, but we played it and it was fun.
I felt it worked.
I think it did. I quickly started not liking it because, do you guys know the song, Sound of the Police?
No.
Yeah, no?
No?
Nope.
Maybe not.
Okay, cool. We tried clearing the sample, could not get a hold of KRS-One or any of his associates.
Yeah, it was just difficult to figure out how to clear that sample, and we kind of like, okay, let's do something else. Let's find another vocalist. And I've been kind of badgering Alex for like the last 5 years to actually release this because we've been playing it out for 5 years.
I hated it.
He hated it and I loved it, and we got a lot of good response on social media, and I'm like, okay, come on, let's do it. And we finally got in touch with MC Moda, who made the vocals, and yeah.
Good job, yeah.
So should we hear it just a little bit before we start the breakdown? Yeah, let's do it.
Yes, tell the people right now. Pegboard Nerds motto have you locking at the sound. All of the gyal go buzzing when me boy I go drop them a coming. Murder. Me a the burning fire and natural born killer. When me bust into flame, watch out some white sting. You better turn it. I am make the bad boy bigger. When they come around me, all over them. Listen to the word and the fire you catch in the middle. When the flames get higher, put up your gun fingers. Return all of the fire. It's a one-man single give a side. And put your gun finger trigger. Put your gun finger trigger.
Yeah.
Right on. So the thing you need to sort of realize here is that this is the result of 6 years of just working on this track on and off. Like, it's been sitting for years and years where we didn't touch it, but in those 6 years you evolve and your techniques change. And so every time we opened the session, it was just like, oh, whoa, wow, okay. We don't produce like that anymore. So then like the session changes and it updates and so this has been rendered out, stemmed out. So we don't really have the single layers anymore, which is why there's there's just so like stuff like that, which is obviously a bunch of layers on top of each other. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so as you can hear, it's the trick to make a song cohesive and feel good, punchy, and interesting to listen to. It's a multitude of factors. So it has to be catchy, it has to punch, it has to have the right arrangement, and it has to have the right mix down. And what we spend a lot of time doing is filling out the blanks. So when you do a song and you have a good melody, you have a good riff, you have good drums, you have everything, you need to kind of fill the empty spaces that make it sound like a professional record. And all those layers Alex just played for you are the result of that technique. It's like filling out those blanks.
Yeah, I mean, I just played you all the layers you don't hear, really. But
but if you take away those blanks, you know, it sounds kind of dull. It still sounds like the same, but it's just missing that extra touch. And that extra touch is basically what takes the most time to figure out.
yeah, I think so. Like we talked about, or have been talking about these past couple of days, just learning how to create texture and atmosphere in a track took me forever. My track sounded bland, sterile, just uninteresting. But once you started adding like just garbage to it, really, just shit in the background, like you push it far into the background, but it triggers this like psychoacoustic phenomenon that Michael can tell you a little bit about, I guess.
I could do that, yeah. So
Being an audiologist.
Well, being an audiologist, yeah. So what triggers the mind is usually things that pops out. You know, attention,
Transients and
you know,
stuff.
like transients and stuff, and of course melody. But what makes a track like feel whole is a balance, like an equal loudness of sound that caters to your auditory system. So that's like the whole frequency range. So if you lack something in a certain frequency range, the production will sound dull in some way. And that's kind of the difference between like a well-balanced and well-mixed record and a boring mixed record.
Do you want me to like solo my way through a couple of
Let's do
just
it.
in a drop? So oh wait, does it not latch? This is a new Ableton. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. So what else we got? So you can kind of hear like the layers are complementing each other. You have a low mid bass and a screechy stuff on top. And there are more layers to this, I think. What else we got? What else? I feel like we end up doing this a lot. Like we end up adding some kind of percussion to a lot of bass sounds to just like give them some
To tick through, to like stick through in the mix, you know, to kind of, you know, make it feel like it's audible, you know. Even though it's audible, that's kind of the trick. One of the things we often talk about is, you know, when mixing a song and is what's the most interesting part? What is it that you want to hear? You can have a lot of layers, and what's the most interesting part? Which should be the loudest one, and which should have more high frequencies and stuff like that. And that's kind of what we do here with all the layering. So that's kind of one of our main things making records is a lot of layering. And you can hear that, and you can actually do a lot of layers, you know? What's that?
Nothing.
Nothing. But also you can trick the mind into thinking that something is there even though it's not. We use that a lot too. You know, you have like frequency, the frequency domain, and you have the time domain that you can work with because of the way our brains work. So using really short sounds, they can really pop through a mix because your brain doesn't perceive short sounds as being as loud as a sustained note. So if you take like a synth and you hold it down and it's sustained, it will feel louder than a short transient sound. So you can actually use a lot of percussive elements to make things groove.
Yeah, which is why also, so our drums are super loud in any mix down. I think we mix with like do you know like the K systems, like 14, K14, K20, all that stuff, or no? Basically what it is you target a specific RMS, like average loudness for your track. So we target 14 dB FS, like full scale, for our average loudness. But that means that you have plenty of room to push transients through. So drums, like our kick and snare, will peak at almost like 0, and the rest of the mix is just negative 14, which is maybe uncomfortably, embarrassingly loud. You're just like, wow, okay. But once you start like compressing it and adding stuff to the master, it'll balance out, and your drums will be punchy. So you can mix up in the reds. You can mix like super low. It doesn't matter. What really matters is the internal relationship between the sounds. Because DAWs today, if you're in like 32-bit, you can like redline your home mix, and at the end of it, you can just like pull the master down, and it's all there, because you have like 1,500 decibels of theoretical headroom. But it just gets messy if you do that, so it makes sense to work towards a defined standard.
Yeah, to keep track of it from the beginning, because if you start, messing your gain staging early on, you'll be pretty fucked, because some plugins, they handle the gain staging differently. And if you want to change something in one plugin and you keep everything in the reds, it's going to fuck up your mix. So it's better to keep everything straight. So in Ableton, we also use the utility a lot to fix things, just to keep things quiet, because you can always get your loudness in the end. So don't mix up in the reds all the time, because it's going to be so much easier to get the mix done right in the end.
Just if you want to, you can try this for yourself too afterwards. You can take any sample and you can add like 10 utilities and just like max all of them. You can do 300 dBs of gain into a Pro Q, make some changes to the Pro Q, and then gain it back down. And if you test that against a second track, like you face flip it, it'll come out clean. It'll be fine. You just like hit a Pro Q of like 300 dB and it's still fine.
Yeah.
Because it's all like it shifts the numbers up and down.
You guys have probably heard that, the importance when you do mix downs is like gain staging is really, really important, blah, blah, blah. And we spend a lot of time, getting there. And we've been in studios, with several people, and one guy we learned a lot from regarding that. We actually want you to meet him.
I need to try and set this up. I'll do this before we call him.
So we're going to do a little FaceTime call, and he's going to give his take on gain staging. And
Oops. There's no more disk space. Your drive is full, Michael.
oops.
What did you just call him still?
Hmm?
Okay. All right, let's do it.
Is it still recording?
Nope.
Yeah, that's an external. Yeah,
It's not.
it's not. Wow. We really are nerds, huh?
Power saver. Click Facetime. All right, let's try and record this again. Go. Here we go.
Okay.
So if he picks up. What's up, man?
Hey, man. How's it going?
How you doing?
Good. How about
Pretty
you?
good, how's things?
It's going well. We're
So,
just talking about what we've been talking to you about when we were in studio, about all the nerdy stuff, gain staging and stuff. And yeah, we wanted to leave the word to you. Thank you for joining us. By
So
the
say
way.
hi to Rob Swire, everyone.
All right. Yeah, it's only gonna. Yeah, it'll only be a sec because it's like nearly 4 a.m. here and I'm fucked.
Oh shit.
I don't know how much they've told you, but gain structuring is like basically just like a way of structuring your mix so that each channel's level is optimal for the plugins on the channel, for the groups, and before it hits the master. There's some plugins like Waves, the DMG ones, especially anything with like an outboard card like the UAD plugins that will basically sound shit if you try and push them outside of their limits. So yeah, I mean, even though most sort of internal mix buses are 32-bit floating point or 64-bit, it kind of seems like it doesn't matter, but if you get sort of 20 copies of random pink noise and stack them together, if you start at about sort of 18 minus 18 decibels, you can stack sort of 20 copies of random noise on top of each other before you start peaking. And that's the whole point of gain staging, is to just make sure you arrive at a point where you're not clipping the master, where it sounds optimal for the plugin processing, and where it sounds sort of where it hits the groups optimally. And that's about it.
That's about it.
Thank you, Rob.
No problem.
Appreciate it. I think everybody here appreciates it
Yo.
too. Thank you very much.
Give a big hand to Rob.
No problem.
All right. Thank you.
Cool.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. So, yeah. Let's check on the laptop screen recording.
Yeah, darn.
Okay. So, yeah, we thought we wanted to give you a little surprise because we're not really good at doing this. This is our first masterclass and our first,
Yeah.
trying to teach at some point, and it's always so difficult, to figure out how is this class going to be. First, we're going to do this, then that, because we tried to do it earlier today, and we spent 6 hours talking back and forth about everything, and it just got nerdy.
Someone should do a master class on doing master classes.
Masterclasses, yeah.
That's what I want to see.
So yeah, it's so difficult, but yeah, gain staging is really, really important. So for the mixdowns, at least. So you probably want to know what kind of plugins that we use, and we do use the same as everyone else.
It's all serum.
So yeah, it's one thing we do want to say is that limit your toolbox and know your tools.
Oh yeah.
don't have 10,000 plugins that can do this and that, and then you see one tutorial from Virtual Riot, you see one from someone else, and then you start, oh, I need this plugin, I need this, and this sample pack, and I need this and that, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's better to know your tools and know what you want. Spend your time doing that rather than trying to, you know, to get a sound out of something you don't really know how it works.
Yeah. Just commit to your tools and know them. I mean, obviously, be open to new experiences, new tools, new techniques and ways of doing stuff, but just kind of like honing your craft is super important. We see a lot of kids at shows that we play. They come up to us. They're like, "I've been making music for 3 months and I'm not getting anywhere."
Monster Cat won't release our music.
And I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. You just gotta, you are not even out of you need to just like keep working.
Yeah.
Really, for years and years.
It takes time to be good at something, and it doesn't really matter what it is. So that's probably one of the things we can take away from this. But regarding the breakdown, so as Alex said earlier, the drums needs to be really, really loud. Another thing that we really care about is the bass, the sub.
Yeah.
How does that work? And as you probably heard with some of the layers, they don't sound very full or very subby in any way. And that's because we kind of want pure sub to come from like a sine wave. And you probably saw that in tutorials online too, but yeah, that's kind of how we get that sound. And Alex actually came up with a really cool technique that we use a lot, which is what we call like a sub scope, where you can actually see your sub, so you can see the relationship and the phase between your kick and your sub, and those things has to be, you know, in line.
Yeah. So what we have set up here is an Ableton rack with 2 chains, one that just is empty, but it passes audio, and one that has its output turned off, and it has a EQ with a low pass filter at around 100 hertz going into a waveform view. So this will basically show you your low end, and we can look at it right now. No, we cannot. Ska jag, nu kommer halsen. Let's go. So, this is kind of a tool that you need to learn how to read, but I guess you can always, you can see it. Like, this is a full and clean low end. You got the kick poking through, and you have the sub bass here. So if you try and set this up and you run a bunch of your, like, the tracks that you know sound good through it, you can sort of get an idea of what it should look like. If you start seeing dips and peaks, it means that something's interfering with your sub bass. And really, if you just want to like fix it, you take every single element of your track, put it through a group, and you high pass it. The only thing that should be allowed to operate below 80 hertz should be your kick and your sub bass. Maybe your snare if you have like a super heavy subby snare.
Yeah.
Once you just like high pass everything, you can get as loud of a mix down as you want.
Yeah. And also you can see that there's like a separation. This way you can actually see that you have a separation between your notes and between the kick and the bass. Sometimes the note length can also, that's what I talked about earlier, like if you have a sustained note, it'll trick your ear into think that it's louder than it really is, and you need separation in your notes. No overlapping notes. You will create phase issues, and sometimes if you render it to disk, you'll get some DC offset that will sound horrible, and you just need to be really alert on that. So that's what we spend a lot of time doing. And the way we kind of figured this out was listening to all Rob Swire stuff, and
no joke,
kind of analyzed everything. So yeah.
So there was a time when we would do this. We would have our kick, and I would just sort of go like this. And you can tell that, actually kind of not. This is phase aligned-ish. Where it dips down as the kick ends, it dips down as the sub comes in. But that's just being a crazy person. If you do that for every single sub, note, you will be aligning kick and sub phase for a whole day. So you need to sort of find, there are diminishing returns to any technique. If you get too crazy, that's good. You went there and you saw what was there, then you take the important things and you sort of go back to a more sensible place where you're not doing this all day. So all of our stuff goes through side chains that are very, very so this kick is enabled, and you can see okay, this is 129 milliseconds. That's what we'll set our sidechain to.
So it only ducks in that exact duration.
So basically it does this. And then I tweaked, this is another funny thing we can show them that we didn't talk about though.
It's a lot we didn't talk about.
There's a lot we didn't talk about. I'm just gonna do this real quick. Where's my serum?
You see, he has way too many plugins.
When, you guys are familiar with serum, I assume. You can go in here and you have bins for your fundamentals and your harmonics. So if you pull this up, you get a sine wave. If you pull the second one up, you get your second harmonic and the third one. So typically our sub basses will look like this, where you have a strong fundamental, and then you add in either the second or the third harmonic, depending on the key of the track and just the other elements of the track. And then you lock the phase, no random, and then you can sort of move the phase and see how it looks in relation to the kick. So that way you don't have to do the manual moving around.
The manual moving around, yeah. So what do you think? Is it cool technique or a shit technique?
Nice song.
That's good.
What else have we got?
So, yeah, what else have we got? So, this was the subscope thing. So, we talked about gainstaging and the sub. Then we have, obviously, also one of our, what do you call it? Difficulties is the mid-side issue. How to get a proper mid-side thing, because you can easily fuck your mix up with having too much sides. You will have a dull sounding mix when it goes into mono, or you'll have a phase issue really easily. And especially if you use samples and some soft synths, they really, they just put on too much widening of some sort that kind of just tricks you into thinking that, oh, this sound is great, but it's not. So it's all about looking at the phase issue and how much stereo do you really have in your mix, because you want it to be really well balanced so that the sides are not too loud compared to the mids.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the better part of my day, just listening to. I feel like Rob like really got this right, and that sort of we confirmed that when we were in the studio with them, where we talked about how your sides or your stereo image is basically its own mix down. And I went back to some of our tracks and I just like I listened to the sides and I was horribly embarrassed. I was like, wow, I thought I knew how to mix and I clearly do not. So for instance, let me just, are you guys familiar with the difference between like left and right, mono and mid side? Like mids are what's the same thing in both speakers. Sides are the difference, right? So if you listen to a track, am I getting ahead of myself here or no?
No, it's fine.
All right.
Let's do it because this is important. This is the thing that we spend a lot of time doing.
So even just listening to our stereo signal, you can kind of clearly tell what the track is all about. Before we sort of tweaked this, it was just a big wash of reverb.
Yeah.
And
noise.
And noise. And it's every track is kind of different. We had the extraordinary thing that we talked about.
True.
Where I don't know if you want to go through the technique of just.
No, I can just tell. We had a song that came out on Monster Cat called "Extraordinary," and I was working on it. And I was like, Alex, dude, I can't. You have to take over now because I can't figure out this stereo issue. It fucks me up. I feel like it's washed out and there's no presence in the mix, and kind of fucked me up. Send it over to Alex. And he was like, shit, I don't know. And then he was like, okay, let me start from the beginning. And he just put everything in mono.
Put just Ableton utility, and I just pick left or right. Doesn't matter. You just need to make everything mono. Every single, so he sent me stems, and I put them all in mono.
And then all of a sudden, the mix started sounding clearer, and actually, in the end, bigger and brighter.
Crazy.
And it felt more right. So one thing we can say, a trick we definitely can say is take care of your sides. Don't make them too loud.
But loud enough.
But loud enough to feel that it's actually stereo. You have to bear in mind that when you go to a concert, you know, you don't have a keyboard player and a bass player that are, one is here and the other one is over there. They're more tight together, so you usually don't have like a huge stereo image when listening to music. So, and how the brain perceives music is also different. You don't, like when we're talking right now, obviously the sound is coming out of the speakers, but the direct sound from us is what you actually want to hear, and that's what your brain actually picks up. So, like spatial cues are super, super important, but don't make it too wide because your brain can't figure out what the hell you're listening to. And that's kind of why some mixes, they sound really fucking weird.
Yeah. There was a point in time where I felt kind of bad about relying on meters and just graphs and whatever for how things were supposed to sound, because I was like, I should be able to pick up on that. But it's a great tool that you can use. So for instance, and this is kind of embarrassing, but I just learned how to read a correlation meter not that long ago, maybe a couple of years. We have some noise from probably some waves bullshit analog plugin running here. Anyways, typically, do you guys know how to read a correlation meter? Right, so you have 0, 1, 0, -1, sorry, 0 and +1. If this thing peaks over here at -1, it means that you have full cancellation. If you try to like mono or mid a signal that sits over here, you will get silence. The left speaker is playing the complete opposite of the right one. If you're at 0, it means that your sides are as loud as your mids. And if you are at a +1, it means that you have a mono signal. So, again, if you look at your favorite tracks, you'll probably find them like hovering around 0.5. I mean, we can try it right here.
Does that mean this is their favorite track?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is just an average of your whole thing. Another cool thing that I'd recommend looking into is this Voxengo plugin called, I always forget what it's called, FA979. It gives you a frequency spectrum-based
Phase overview.
phase correlate. I can't even. So let's just look at it. So this is the same thing. You have +1 full mono at the top, equal loudness mid-side in the center, and like full cancellation at the bottom. So you can tell our low end is mono, and then as you go up in the frequency spectrum, it gets wider. Yeah, takes time to learn how to read that, but recommend it.
Yeah. So that's kind of some of the things that we thought we'd teach you, because we spent a lot of time, many years, figuring out how to get that sound. We know it's not really sound design, but we'll get into the sound design thing a little bit later. But yeah, that's kind of the best tips we can give you is mid-sides, clean sub, and gain staging. Figure out how that works. And the way we kind of mix tracks is we mix them so they actually don't need mastering. So none of our songs are mastered, like none.
So like as in sent off to?
Sent off to someone else. Everything is done in the door.
We can go through that if you want. For this one, I guess. It is. Do you want to pull up the plugins for?
Yeah, sure. Let's see it. I'm pretty sure they want to see what the hell is going on.
Small.
So what I meant that it's not being mastered. It's not being mastered by someone else. We try and do everything ourselves, so we can actually fix the mix easily if something is wrong. If the final track is not working, we can pretty easily render out a new version.
This isn't mastered. This isn't mastered. What are you talking about?
But it varies. It's not always all these kind of plugins on.
No. Nothing. All right. I think this is too much to keep open at once. So I'm just going to go through them one at a time. If you guys want to see this. Basically, again, this is kind of a terrible track to use as a breakdown for you guys because it's been through. I don't even want to look at this track anymore. There's some compression at the beginning, and we will look for the kick and snare being the prominent triggers. Right? You can tell how it just like dips down on the kick and snare. Then, typically there's some kind of like EQ. I was clearly into PsyQ at the time. Some kind of boost into highs. You can just always boost the highs, I feel like. EQ fixing, again, just balancing it, I don't know. Super secret needs to be cut out of the stream at ShiShi. And this Vengeance multiband compressor, if you go into all mastering?
Yep.
I forgot. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, the Unisquasher
The
preset
Unisquasher,
is crazy, but look at it. We're using like 4%. This is like an OTT
On steroids.
on steroids. use with caution.
Yeah.
Definitely don't ever put this on your master, like we did.
Like we did on this one.
Some multi-band compression. I'm not sure that's necessary. Also, if you want to look into some great like tips and tricks, like Luca Predolisi, yeah. Studio DMI has a bunch of great videos on just anything. Some more exciting, the highs, the mid, like it goes down as you go through the frequency spectrum. What else? The end of it, it's just a clipper, which is in itself a funny little story, because I never really knew about clipping your master until I saw Luca's video on that. And I was like, no, you're not clipping your master. Stop it. And then I had my Fireface.
RME Fireface?
RME Fireface 800. And I was like, all right, let's try this. So I took my outputs and I plugged them into my inputs on my interface. And through the RME software mixer, I gained stuff so that I was clipping my input converters. And I was amazed to find that you could clip up towards 6 dB and it was still okay.
Without apparent distortion. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, what? Why are we using limiters? Screw that.
That's true.
Just threw them away. Start clipping.
Yeah.
And then we went through, 3 years of trying hardware clipping, software clippers. To me, it doesn't really matter. Lucas swears to the Lyra.
So we have 2 of those for sale?
Yes, we bought the Lyras.
We bought the Lyras because he did it, you know.
Just to try it.
Just to try it. And we figured out that, damn, standard clip works just
for us, it was just fine. Yeah, this is like a $50 plug-in. Oh, hello.
That's me.
Don't touch your microphone. Mike, don't touch your mic. Yeah. Standard clip, great plug-in. There's free clip, there's Kaz ROG. Just look up clippers and try it. And you will find that 6 dB is the limit. If you clip beyond, so typically what we do to find the level that we can clip at is, let me just reset this. Instead of gaining up into the clipper and sort of like mess up your listening level, you can pull the threshold down and listen for like when you get audible distortion. So check this out. Like it's obviously too much, but this is okay. It's peaking around like 6 dBs of clipping. And then once I know the level, I'm like, okay, negative 13.4. I reset this, and I put this at 13.4. And you get the same clipping. Yeah, I don't know.
And
I'm gonna shut up now.
No, and a fucking loud mix. Yeah. So, are you guys interested in listening to like the breakdown of the track as it is, or is that even interesting at all? I mean, just each layer, because what we think is important is obviously not the same as you guys, because we've already struggled for ages to figure out how to do things. And yeah, I mean, personally, I don't think that a breakdown here would make any sense, but rather do talk about arrangement and talk about sound design, and then we'll open different sessions if you're into that. So so about this song was, you know, it's been underway for a long time, and the session we've been working in here is actually not the version that's been released.
This is sort of the source session for the final arrangement.
The final arrangement. So what we do is, instead of, you know, moving around, when you have like 88 or maybe 140 layers, it's really difficult to rearrange. You have to be able to have a crazy overview, moving around little clips here and there, and you're going to lose some clips when you move around, when you're going to do your arrangement. So what we do is we stem out a stereo file, and then we actually cut in it. And then we make a new session where we kind of rearrange it with the stereo file to figure out what works. So in this one, we have a lot of different elements. Some of them made the cut, some of them didn't. And that's just an easy way to get an overview. As you can see, there's a ton of elements here.
There are parts we didn't use at all. I mean, we wanted to. I'm just gonna quickly try and play some of them.
Let's play. That obviously.
Yeah,
There's obviously some parts that didn't make the cut.
I'm gonna make a drum bass edit one day once I get over myself. A couple of other interesting sounds, I guess. Like we'll add like little accents to stuff. So.
Burning fire and natural born killer. When we bust into flame, what sounds I might sting you.
Kind of sounds terrible because he goes through all kinds of clippers stuff. But what else? The vocal too is sort of the result. Like Mota sent us a bunch of stacks, like octaves up and down, ad libs, and this is what we ended up using, I guess. Oh,
it's the sound of the police.
Wasn't there? Oh my God.
Yes, son of people right now. Pegboard Nerds Mozza have you locking at the sound. All of the gal go buzzing when me boy I go drop them a coming. Murderous. Me are the burning fire and natural born killer. When me bust into flame, what shouts I might sting. You better turn it. I am make the bad boy bigger. When they come around me, I go burn them. Listen to the word and they wire your cuts in the middle. When the flames get higher, put up your gun fingers. Return all of the fire. It's a bad man single. Give a sign. And put your gun finger trigger.
God, stop it. You. So actually, he didn't sing it like this. We ended up melodyning it. Melodyne's a great tool. Is this the one? Oh, just watch this go down in flames.
Oh, by the way, now that we're listening to the a cappella, we kind of decided that we wanted to give you guys the a cappella, and if you want to work with it, you can make a remix. You can do what you want.
Right on. Yeah.
It only goes to you guys, so we know who got it. So if you're gonna do something shitty, we will know.
If it ends up on WeTransfer, yeah.
But
Sorry.
Whoever wants them and want to do like a remix and whatnot, you should sign up with the ShiShi and with your email, and you'll get a download link for it.
Yep. I don't know. I think this is kind of just funny because he kind of sung. It was less melodic because he did the vocals before we did the reggae part.
Yep.
And then he sent the vocals, and we did the reggae part kind of as a joke. And we're like, okay. Ended up changing the melody. Kind of, it was just messing around. And then actually ended up being the track, which is kind of funny. So let me try and turn off Melodyne for a minute.
Listen to the word and they wire your cuts in the middle. When the flames get higher, puts up your gun fingers. Return all of the fire, it's a bad man signal. Give us.
So it turned into.
Listen to the word and they wire your cuts in the middle. When the flames get higher, put up your gun fingers.
So yeah, Melodyne is an amazing tool. Super
easy.
Super easy.
Super easy, yeah. So yeah, let's look at that arrangement thing, because that's one of the things that we also spend a lot of time doing, making the right arrangement, even though we know that there are certain formulas that work. If you listen to a shitload of tracks, you can align them in your session and they'll be like, okay, 8-bar intro, 8-bar build-up, first drop, part B, drop, down to the melody, blah blah blah. You'll have a lot of tracks like that being the same, but sometimes a track just doesn't deserve that formula, and sometimes it does, and we need to figure out which elements goes where, and this is actually the easiest way of doing it.
Yeah, you sort of remove the distraction of being able to edit layers and channels and stuff. You're just like, all right, we're doing arrangement. I have one channel or one file to deal with. There are some lost tracks because previous just arrangements where I deleted the sources, so I don't need that. Yeah.
Let's play it.
Yes, tell the people right now. Pegboard Nerds must have you locking at the sound. All of the gyal go passing when me boy I go drop them a coming. Murderers. Me are the burning fire and natural born killer. When me bust into flame, watch out some mics. You better turn it. I am make the bad boy bigger. When they come around me, I go on them. Listen to the word and the fire you caught in the middle. When the flames get higher, put up your gun fingers. Return all of the fire. It's a bad man single. Give a sign.
Yeah, so I mean, even here, we had to render out specific. This is obviously just a short section, but we decided to just do the reggae part twice. And so we had to tweak the intro, tweak the reggae part to fit with the new intro, rendered out specific parts. They were just edited together down in the timeline of the original session, exported, imported here, put together. And you can, I think the final release was just this edit.
Yeah, there was this edit, yeah, because it sounded great. And the good thing about this is you kind of step back from your session view and step back from the mess of looking at all these tracks and all that shit. So it kind of makes it so much easier to arrange a song like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of it. So so now let's talk sound design, because what is sound design really? Is it one element in the song? Is it a wobble? Is it a bass? What is it? For us, sound design is the whole song. So it's like all the elements together. It's drums, it's pads, keyboards, it's vocals, it's everything has to fit together. You know, it doesn't make sense to have a really cool, super grimy drop wobble with a lot of weird overtones and stuff like that, and then there's a disconnect from the melody because they don't fit together. So yeah, sound design for us is like an overall thing, and with this, that's kind of the tricky part, and that's where I used to, just say, oh, I'm satisfied, that's good, and Alex, he's like, I'm not sure, and then we end up with a lot of layers, and we want to show you an example of how things can be layered. And this is not going to be a wobble thing, because you can find tutorials on YouTube galore with these kind of things. So using serum and stuff like that, we don't even want to get into that because people do it the same way anyway. We want to talk about actually what's most important for us, and that's melody. And that's kind of one of the things we always have in our tracks. If you listen to any track, there's always a melody because you need something to remember it by. So you wanna hear this thing? Let's do it.
Yeah. It's kind of a funny thing. It's been sitting for years though, maybe 10 years or more. This is something we should talk about later, just attitude and mentality, but we've been letting this sit for way too long. Anyways, let's play it.
So how many layers do you think there's in this riff? Anyone?
These 4.
At least 4. So usually that's a really good guess, and usually we kind of stick to that amount, or at least what you think there is. But there's actually
What, 13?
13 layers.
Right. Yeah. Soul hair.
So, but that's the trick when you layer and you do sound design, is to make it sound simple and interesting. But take a look at that.
Right. This might be a little excessive, though. You could probably, dial this down a little, but I think
11.
it's interesting to 11. Don't dial it down. I agree. We're on the same page. Should we just solo our way through this?
Let's do it.
The reason it sounds kind of messed up is some of these tracks are going through a group with our good old friend Unisquatcher on it. So it's going to Unisquash a single layer instead of all of them.
All layers together, yeah.
So just keep that in mind. So basically, just like once you have a lead melody, if you build it out with harmonies and chords and different transients, layers, it'll make it more interesting, I think, is what we're finding. And then there's like a... Yeah, I mean, and that's not even getting into the mid-side kind of thing. Another thing that is worth noting, I guess, is something that Kashmir brought up, which is killing the reverb on each separate note. Has anyone seen that video? He turns, let me see if I can find it, because I think I'm doing it somewhere. Here, maybe?
Yep.
Nope. All right, get done. I know what I'm doing. Sometimes.
Yep.
I really want to find this, so just give me a second. Are you done?
Sound good.
Yeah. So... wow, okay. Basically what you do is you take, we have this like, help. You can turn the reverb off for each note hit, and it'll just come out cleaner. It's going to sound very brutal on its own, but just doing it makes it just
In the mix, it'll sound better because
super powerful.
All the separate notes would have their own reverb, and it won't bleed into the next note. Mm-hmm. So, like the first note, if it has a reverb and the tail is longer than the tempo of the track, so it actually goes into the next note, you'll kill it before it hits the next note. So each note has its own reverb, and there's no bleed from any harmonies or anything. It'll just sound cleaner, and it will punch more through the mix, and you will kill all of that wishy-washy things that you sometimes get from big reverbs. So that trick is pretty good.
Yeah. It's a lot of work though. So write your melody before you do that stuff. Because if you do that and then you want to change it, you're just like stuck moving automation points around, and no one wants to do that.
Yep, that's for sure. So yeah, it's sound design it's all about layering. It's about figuring out your song, your mood. What are you going for? Like this is obviously an old trance riff that we might turn into some rhythm or whatever.
Yeah.
No, we're never doing rhythm.
Nope.
That's not gonna happen.
No.
But yeah, it's about finding a good balance, because you can imagine with this riff, how would that sound going into like a halftime, like trap drop, or maybe a dubstep drop, or whatever, you know? It's going to be difficult. It would be so much easier to do like a full-fledged Gareth Emery style, just trance, like that would be so much easier, but it's also a little bit boring. So it's all about finding a good balance.
You just killed our Gareth Emery collab. Shh. What?
I didn't say Gareth Emery was boring.
Oh my God.
I said it was boring doing that. Not that the music would be boring.
Okay. So you're playing this Deadpool track or no?
Oh.
Let's get this thing off the ground.
Right. Okay.
I love dubstep.
Thank you guys.
Maybe we should combine those. That melody and that drop.
No, I hate you. Let's not do that. No, I love you. But okay, so again, you see the subscope thing, which we
Talked about earlier, yeah.
yeah. Right. So Q&A.
Yeah. Q&A. Let's do Q&A. So
I mean, we could talk for hours, but yeah.
And we probably should. So if you want to stick around, let's do it. But I think we have to wrap this little.
You guys are insane. Give it up for Pegboard Nerds, guys. Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
Jeez. I don't know about you guys. That was just like light bulb after light bulb after light bulb. Yeah, thank you guys so much. So we are gonna do like 20 minutes of Q&A, and then if your question doesn't get asked, well, first try to keep it to production-related questions. There's a meet and greet afterwards. If you have like questions about other stuff, just try to save those for later. Yeah, we'll do 20 minutes of Q&A, and then actually,
Huh?
Hey Tori,
Det var dejligt clean.
let's do the speaker thing right now. So everybody who signed up, their email address, which I think was pretty much everyone, that entered you guys into a sweepstakes to win one of our monitor speakers, which is is this the winner? Okay, which is the JBL 104s. So they're just these like really dope compact monitor speakers. So I'm just gonna read the winner now. And if you didn't win, they're like $150, so you can just go buy one.
Just buy one.
So James Rice. Oh, nice.
Oh, boy.
The OG. There you go. Congrats. You spoke that into existence before
Nice.
before we started. Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll do 20 minutes of Q&A, guys, and then we got pizza after that. So
Hey.
Pizza on us. No one likes pizza. Oh. Pineapple belongs on pizza. Can we just all agree on that? Yeah? Okay. Do we need to kick someone out?
I'm leaving.
Get out. All right.
All right.
Sorry. So yeah, just raise your hand if you have a question. I'll walk the mic over to you.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
I know the synth doesn't really matter, but what are you doing most of your sound design in these days?
Serum.
Okay, yeah, so that wasn't a joke.
No, it's not a joke, but I want to say that Serum is just sort of the starting point. It's just a source. It could be massive. It could be anything. It used to be massive for years, obviously. But so a thing we didn't really talk about, though, is the resampling process that we go through.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
I can do that super quickly because I think you'll get the idea. We'll start out with the Serum. It doesn't have to be Serum. It just needs to be something to start like
Some tone generator.
molding, some tones, whatever. And do like dives, like pitch drops, up, down, filters, up and down. It doesn't really matter. Just generate content. And then we in Ableton, we split it up into 3 chains, one high pass, one band pass, and one low pass. And we start automating the filters, and then they will interfere with each other, and you'll get weird like interactions with the bands, and then you can add different distortions to each band. And you can put filters before distortion, after distortion. You render it out, you split it up, you do the same thing again, render it out, split it up, do the same thing again, and you do this like 10 times, and you end up with garbage. And then you try it again, and you're like, oh, there's a cool noise like right there. And then you just like, okay, I like that one. Just put it down on a separate track. So you're just digging for gold, really. But you need to like set yourself up for happy accidents, and you do that by just over and over and over and over. And as you do it, you start to learn like what works and what not works. Like, oh, distortion before filter sounds like shit. If I put it after, it sounds better. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Unisquasher.
Yeah.
I know.
Who else?
Yo, I just had a question about like your creative process and like before you go into like the studios and like where you get your inspiration from and.
Oh, good question, because we didn't even talk about that. I mean, we talked a lot about it.
Today we talked a lot about it, and we
Between
actually
the
had it
two
on
of
our
us.
notes. But yeah.
Did you have more you wanted to add
No,
to that?
yeah.
Oh no, that's fine.
Okay, so we deal with the same kind of issues you guys do and everyone does, which is frustration, just feeling desperate, feeling like you're not getting anywhere every day. Still do. There are nights when I go to bed where I just want to like cry because I feel like I don't know what I'm doing.
I can tell you at least 3 times a week, I get a text from Alex. That's it. I'm quitting. It's fuck this. I hate it.
Right. So how do you deal with that? And
I stopped replying.
Good. No, I'm just being a whiny little baby, and you're the only one I can whine to who understands, you know. But of course, I wake up and I go back into the studio. It's the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
Every day you're not in the studio, someone else is in the studio crushing it.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's painful. And yes, you have to do it over and over and over. It's a lonely game.
Yeah. Can be a lonely game.
Can be a lonely game. But so the thing that I think motivates me is when you hit those like peaks of just like, I finally nailed that drop or that sound or that thing. Like, yes, it's there. I do not know how it happened, but it's there. And it came to be because I went into the studio every single day for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 10 years. Yeah. You just don't stop, because if you stop, you gave up, and then, well, there's not going to be any music from that.
That's true. I mean, I remember we did a track called We Are One. It's, 6 years old now. And we sat in the studio, and then finally we were like, oh, fuck, man, we need to go to bed. We've been up for like 20 hours. And then all of a sudden, one sound comes up, and we're like, woohoo, let's continue.
Yeah,
And that's you know, you spend a lot of time in pain, and then all of a sudden something comes up and you're like revitalized.
But you can't, like we talked about, you cannot skip those 8 hours.
No.
And it's a funny thing because we talked to a lot of people about this, and I don't know how you feel about it, but once you sit down, like typically stuff starts happening after 7 or 8 hours. You get into a flow, inspired, like call it whatever you want, but something happens. And when you enter that mode, like you do not stop.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, sometimes that shit happens in the beginning as well, and then
Can
you
happen in the
after that
beginning.
you sit for 10 hours and nothing happens. But
Sure.
it's just you just have to continue. Just keep
that's
going.
that's the motivation for me. Like when that happens, that feeling is kind of like a drug, and like I want to experience it again.
And another thing is, you know, when you're there, it's that feeling is undeniable. It's just when you've hit something.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. We usually get goosebumps. I don't know about you, if you get goosebumps when you listen to music, but I do.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
Preach. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Someone had their hand up here.
So I noticed in one of your other tracks, you guys had your returns set up as actual tracks as opposed to like at the bottom using sends. Is there a process that you guys go through to do that, or a reason behind that, as opposed to just using the sends within the channel strip?
So that's something that sort of stems from the way we used to work in Pro Tools, where we will create an audio track that acts as
That's an aux.
or a bus, and then we. It's a good thing you noticed that, by the way. We'll just output tracks down to this group track, because I'm not in the thing that I don't like using groups in Ableton. Because when we go into older sessions to import tracks and reuse stuff, the groups don't show up. You don't see the groups. You only see the tracks, which is super annoying. So it's just sort of like a relic from
It's a leftover.
Pro Tools mentality.
Yeah.
Really.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's okay to clap.
So I had a question on the track that you showed us. You had a couple like other tracks, and like I think it was like a Zomboy remix or something. So how do you guys go about doing referencing and actually getting your track to be compared with other tracks when obviously there's like a mix and master done project and yours is in the work still, or like when you're just like at the end of the mix down stage?
So do you want to?
No, I mean, that would be probably a pre-master. So you actually route all your tracks to a pre-master, and then you, underneath that, or above it, whatever, you'll have both the pre-master thing go to the real master and your reference tracks go to the real master. So
we put our master chain, or whatever you want to call it, on, like we talked about, the sort of audio track that acts as a group. So everything in the session will end up in a single audio track within Ableton before being passed on to the master. And the benefit of that is you can have your mastering chain on the pre-master, or whatever you want to call it, and then you can still have your reference track go to the master, and you can quickly just like solo it,
A/B,
and not have to turn your master chain off to not have your reference track go through your own master and stuff like that. And if you want to reference before your track is sort of like clipped to shit, we just lower the reference track down to like a similar level. Typically, if we're targeting K14, you can do like -12 or something for the reference track. You're just like sort of eyeballing it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Problem.
Who else?
So you talked about, when you're doing the melodies, how you kind of cut off the reverb of each individual note before it bleeds in the next to kind of control the mix. What other techniques for controlling reverb and things like that to make sure the mix is clean do you guys use?
The side chaining.
Yeah, we sidechain. So we do Ableton racks, but there are other ways of doing this in other DAWs. But so there's a rack with the dry sound, and then there's a rack with the reverb sound. And in addition to just killing the reverb on every note, there's a compressor that sidechains to the dry rack, so that every time the note hits, the reverb ducks. And you can do that internally in the rack, or via an external trigger, it doesn't matter. I think that's just about it.
That's about it, yeah. Then, obviously, you can EQ, put other effects after the reverb, to make it blend better.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's a too bright reverb, or it's whatever, you can sculpt it around any other sound, make it feel more cohesive.
It's a very brutal technique, the reverb, tail killing thing. It's not for every track. It's for super in-your-face bangers, like spin-in or whatever, Sometimes you want there to be more atmosphere and more tails. So use with
caution,
or apply where appropriate.
Thank you.
That sounded like a sun lotion. Apply where appropriate.
Yeah, my face is just burnt.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, get another one.
So, how much music theory do you guys know, and how does that help you recreate ideas that you come up with when you're not in the studio? So, if you're out on the road or something, and you're not near Ableton, and you have an idea pop up in your head, a chord progression melody, what helps you recreate it to sound the way you had it in your head?
Oh. Yeah, well, that's kind of different from me and Alex. So Alex is really good at melodies. So, for example, the track Disconnected, so he would call me or text me early in the morning like, dude, I woke up with this melody in my head, and I just fleshed it out on the piano. And he would send it to me. Like, how the hell can you dream that melody? How the fuck is that possible? So I guess usually that's, and it's not the first time, it happened several times. For my part, I'm really slow at that shit. So when I have an idea, it takes me a long time to get that down on paper. But I guess, using your phone, just sing it, record it, sing your idea, write it down, whatever. But do it immediately. So when you get a good idea, it's just get it down there. It might be a shit idea, but at least you will be able to remember it.
You'll forever regret not doing it.
You have no idea how many hits we made, but they never came out.
Yeah, we're superstars. None of us have any music theory, though. I do not know any theory. I sort of dig into it because I want to know, and I wish I knew more than I do. And so I kind of picked up on some things, but most of it is just by ear, just by doing it over and over and over. And you develop your taste, your ability, and you don't have to know. And the funny thing is, when we talk to people who are super educated, they're just they're just like, don't do it. Martin.
That's true. Yeah. We work with a guy, classically trained. He's a conductor. He's a percussionist. He plays 11 instruments, and we're making a record with him. And he's like, I was sitting there with my 2-finger system, and he's like, stop! What are you doing? What the fuck is that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just, you don't like it? And he's like, yeah. But let me see. And then he started, okay, stop. And then he started writing everything down in notes. And then he was like, and then he sat down and he was like, okay, is it like this? And then he did 10 fingers and foot as well and everything. God damn it. Because he just, in his mind, you can't write music like that or in a DAW. He needs to write it down on a sheet. And that's how people are different, I guess. But what I really liked about him is that he said that he liked that anyone can make music. You don't have to be be classically trained or anything, you know, to make music. It's all about ideas, and he's always been, you know, following the rules and stuff. And he's like, I really like how you guys think, because you don't think about rules. You just do whatever. If it sounds good, it sounds good, and that's the main thing. And that also goes for using samples, like splice, everything else. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you get there. If it sounds good in the end, it sounds good.
So me going to dance or not, like, really, like, it doesn't matter. Or if someone like calls you out and you used that loop from that pack. Who cares?
Oh my God, it's Vengeance Essential House Music.
Yes, the intro.
Part 3, blah blah blah. So
if you need to realize that none of the people at the club knows that sample packs exist. They just don't. They don't. That's why, like, for our Corolla live remix, yes, the opening like guitar thing is just a straight up loop from a Vengeance pack. It just sounded good. I was like, drop it in. It sounds great. All right, let's use it. I don't care, like, because I also, but that's also because I know that we can get super nerdy if you want to.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. But don't be afraid to be called out or whatever, because it doesn't matter. It does not matter. You know, you probably heard the story about the sheep farmer, like the guy who was a musician and.
Oh, the goat skin. Oh, yeah.
You know, it's such a crazy story, you know.
He's running a goat farm and doesn't know how to make music anymore.
Yeah. So he starts to make music and he wants to know, oh shit, I'm using samples, but I'd rather do it myself. So I start learning to play the drums. And,
that was cheating.
Oh shit, that was cheating. Sample is cheating, playing the drums is also cheating. So I need to make my own drums. I can't just buy the ones from the store. Oh shit, that's cheating.
I need to make my own drum skins.
So now I need to do my own drum skins. That was also cheating.
So I grew a goat.
So I had to goat farming, and now I'm stuck. I'm not making music. I'm a goat farmer, you know. so that's kind of that's kind of mentality, you know. Don't be afraid to do that shit, because it doesn't matter.
Right. It's like, do you want to build your guitar or do you want to play your guitar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh, that was a really long answer. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're good. Thank you.
Hey, Pegboard.
Hi.
Huge fan. But one question I was wondering is, how do you find the milliseconds in the clips you were using for that phase?
Oh, it's in the bottom.
Yeah, you make a selection, and then it'll be down. Oh wait, so yeah, it's kind of funny with the mouse. You keep your mouse cursor up there, and do you see
it in the bottom?
It's like there. Wait, no, it's not. Do it again. Make a selection or whatever.
Yeah, you had it zoomed in, and it was like one.
Yeah.
You'll see the duration down there.
Okay, so this is like 2 seconds, and yeah, 1 second, 120 milliseconds. You can see at the bottom.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I know what I'm talking about. That's fair.